Hi there, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm Ben from Predatar, and I'm joined today by two highly experienced solution architects. We've got Chris, my colleague here from Predatar.
Hello.
And we've also got Richard joining us from our technology partner, Lenovo.
Hi there.
So the theme of today's webcast session is recovery assurance. So just to set expectations, this isn't going to be a technical deep dive. It's going to be fairly high level. So it's my intention to kind of set the scene of recovery assurance. We're going to talk about the concepts and principles, the challenges behind why recovery assurance exists. And we will talk about technology, but probably on a fairly high level. We're going to have a discussion for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll close with a short video, which will be a sort of in-product video focusing on Predatar. And the purpose to that is to really bring to life some of the concepts that we'll be talking about and hopefully make it feel a bit more tangible for you guys, the viewers. And here's the bit that I always forget to mention, but I've got it written down so I won't forget. Q&A. So if you have questions, during the course of this webcast, if you just use the Q&A tab on the side of the screen, we've got a couple of members of the Predatar team waiting in the wings to answer your questions. So we'll answer those in real time. So without further ado, let's start this conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Chris. Before we talk about recovery assurance and what that means and what the technology is, it's always good to start with a discussion around the challenges. So could you tell us a little bit about what is the customer problem or the challenge that recovery assurance is designed to solve?
Yep, so recovery assurance is designed to solve the problem for customers that they don't know that when they need to recover after an event that they can recover and that they can recover cleanly. The data will be not infected by something like malware, for example.
Okay. And do organizations not know that today?
By and large, in my experience, organizations don't carry out anywhere near enough testing of recoverability of their systems. They might test small parts of their environments, the critical components that they need to have up and running as soon as possible to keep the business viable. But they don't do it often enough and they don't do it fully enough.
Okay, so testing is the way that you know.
Absolutely. There's no other way of knowing that the backups that you've taken will restore. You actually have to recover them. That's the whole point of backup, is to restore it.
Okay, and so a lot of businesses, particularly enterprises, have over the years, over several years now, have been spending quite a lot of budget on cyber security, solutions and software. Is that not enough?
So cybersecurity has to be multi-layered. You need lots of layers to make sure that any kind of attack can't get all the way through to your critical data and that you can restore after an event. So there's a lot of products in production systems, but none of those are designed to test that your backups are clean and that they can be restored.
So when you talk about backups being clean, does that mean that if you do suffer a data breach, if an organization suffers a data breach, that the infection can not only target those primary systems, but actually they can be present in the backups as well?
If you back up production systems that have been infected, you are backing up the infection, and then if you restore that data, you are reintroducing it into your environment.
Okay.
So you need to know it's clean.
Yep, that's a concerning thought. I'll bring in Richard now. So Richard, you work really closely with your customers at Lenovo. And is this something they're worried about? I guess firstly, do they have awareness that they have this problem that they might not be able to recover? And if they do, what is it they're doing about it?
So I would say that a lot of customers that we speak to around ransomware or challenges around security around their backups, a lot of the time those particular projects get pushed to the bottom of the pile because there's a lot of challenges around resourcing, and there are challenges around keeping the data center going with the primary systems, not necessarily focusing on the backup systems and the the data that's being backed up. But I'd also say that customers have challenges even understanding the depth and the quantity of the data they have and where that data is. So, critical data, key data, yes, okay, it's normally in a very secure place, but it's all the other data that's around it and all the other interdependencies of that data. So to restore it is a big thing. And when you say, let's do a test, or have you tested? Normally it's we don't really have time to do that, or we don't have the luxury or the resources to do that. So we'll do that, we'll plan that for another time, and then it gets forgotten.
Okay, so it sounds like it's actually quite a multi-layered problem. So you spoke about, resource challenges within customers.
Yeah.
So they know they've got a problem. They're aware that there's this big risk, this looming risk, but they're really low on resource. They're probably struggling to manage the day-to-day anyway with the resource they've got. And then on top of that, you kind of spoke about complexity. Mm-hmm. So they're also dealing with these, vast, really complicated systems. So
absolutely, and also possibly legacy systems as well. A lot of the systems involve multiple things, such as maybe tape or other archive destinations and archive to medias. So it's quite complex. There's a lot of there's a lot of legacy that's been built up in that. So that's the way they've always done it, and that's the way they just carried on doing it because it should work. And going back to Chris's point, not actually testing, does it work, and what would happen if the unthinkable happened, and it happens more often than you think.
Okay, so actually you've just added another layer of complexity in as well. So what could be the impact then if organisations, they know they've got a problem, but it's so complex to solve, they're struggling day in, day out to keep on top of the day-to-day tasks anyway. What could be the consequence if they don't prioritise this testing or this data resilience or whatever it is you want to call it?
So they're hoping, and that's never a clever strategy. So the consequences are that when the time comes to run a large-scale recovery, it's highly unlikely it's going to be clean, and then it will work quickly and well first time. And they'll probably be learning on the recovery where their problems are.
Okay, not a good time to be learning where your problems are when everything's going a bit crazy and your hair's on fire?
Exactly, and we've seen data suggesting that during a cyber event recovery, that the chances of recovery is working are very, very low. Maybe 80% of restores will actually fail during a major cyber event. Okay,
that's a sort of sobering thought, isn't it? And how about let's talk a little bit about the timescales. So actually, you talked about large-scale recovery. How long typically can it take an organisation to recover, if they get hit and taken down by a cyber attack?
If everything goes well, we're probably talking days. And we've certainly seen cases in the media where things don't go well, and that can stretch to weeks or months.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if a business is offline or even only able to sort of partly function for months, that's got to have a pretty significant impact. I would have thought. What might those consequences be?
So the two main consequences are lack of revenue because the business isn't able to transact with their own customers, and a collapsing brand image, I think, would be the other one. The market and the public will soon learn when businesses are unable to function.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess if you're a customer, you can't place orders, you can't transact, but I guess also you can't access, customer services, customer support, and like you say, very quickly you'll get frustrated, and it'll have that brand reputation impact that you're talking about, and therefore an ongoing, decrease in revenue because your customers are, have lost their loyalty.
Right.
Anything else at all that
I was just going to say, if you can't recover the data because it's been encrypted by a threat actor of some description, then it means that that data's gone. So, paying a ransom for data is not an answer because they'll just ask for more. they'll do it again, and it just perpetrates the problem. Whereas if you, so the other option is, well, you've lost all your data, and if you've lost the data, that's it, it's gone. You can't get it back, and that data is critical. That's your history of historic transactions. That's your corporate information. That's your personnel information. If it's gone, it's gone. That's it.
Yeah, so okay, as well as the impact have on customers, you mentioned personnel, so also, the trust of your employees as well.
Absolutely.
I guess stakeholders, business partners, supply chain, actually, it goes on and on, actually, the impact that it can have. And so what are, I guess, I'm just thinking about what are organisations doing today. So we're going to come on to kind of what we would say is sort of a new innovations or new wave of recovery assurance technology in a second. Is there anything in the marketplace already, or are there any solutions that organisations are already using? I think you touched upon it earlier when you were kind of talking about some of those legacy solutions.
So, to go back to the legacy point, I think the legacy approach is, we're going to back up our data, we're going to put it somewhere, and we're going to keep putting more in there, and we're going to, and it becomes just a regular process. If we talk about very traditional backups, we're talking about tapes and taking tapes to a secure facility somewhere, which is great on the surface. It's secure, it's great, it's over there, it's all good. But then the problem is, well, how do we get it back? Oh, we just have to go back and get our tapes. Fantastic. Or, that's a very old school way of looking at backup. But, that isn't a modern, sustainable way of quickly recovering your data. Because do you know which tape it's on? No. So it takes time, and that adds to the time and the complexity. And then when you can get it back, is it in the right order? Is it in the right... Is it in the right place? Have I got all the bits I need to reconstruct my data? And as Chris said, am I reconstructing the thing that caused it to go wrong in the first place, to be either taken or stolen or whatever it might be? So am I actually fixing the problem here?
That sounds incredibly complicated and fraught with danger.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what a more modern solution might be. Chris, let's talk about recovery assurance. That's why we're here. Is it fair to say that recovery assurance is at least part of the solution to this problem?
Absolutely, it's a very large part of the problem. So what we've been doing at Predatar is creating something we call a clean room, and that's a segregated environment which customers can use to test that their backups can be restored, that they are clean, and if they're not clean, they can actually use the clean room to cleanse any infected backups of malware and reintroduce that into the environment, into the production systems.
Yeah, perfect. So we'll talk about the clean room a little bit more in a second, actually, because Predatar and Lenovo have worked really closely together to put together what we think is an absolute, best practice, best in class, what we call clean room, effectively an isolated recovery environment. We'll come back to that in a second. And then I guess the other part to recovery assurance, if we've got the clean room, isolated recovery environment, there's also the software layer, and really that's what Predatar is all about. What are some of the key components, that within Predatar?
So the first thing to talk about is something we call Predatar Signal, and that is AI-controlled software which is able to look through the noise that is created by all the disparate systems in an IT environment that are sending warnings that could potentially be malware, and to understand what is most likely to be malware, and to feed that information back to the customer, but also to use automation to take that information and go and look at the backups that need to be checked because of what the warnings have said. So it's able to proactively go and scan and recover and test and clean if necessary.
Okay, so within the Predatar software solution, it's kind of got everything from threat detection, all the way through to automation to make these processes easy to execute and manageable for busy teams. all the way through to actually the tools that can understand and interrogate and remove things like malware within the environment.
Yeah. You've got it.
Great, okay. And then that works hand in hand with an isolated clean room environment. Now a clean room can be deployed in many different ways. So you can have a cloud clean room or an on-premise clean room. You can deploy a clean room using an OVA file.
Exactly.
So that's a really quick and easy way to deploy the solution. But we believe that the optimum clean room solution is this isolated recovery environment, which we've worked with Lenovo to put together and make easily available to the market. Rich, can you tell us a little bit about what that clean room offering is?
So the clean room offering would be based on a number of, so Lenovo and Predatar have got together to work out a series of t-shirt sized hardware solutions. The solution by its very nature is scalable in a way, so can grow as it needs to within the customer organization. But certainly a number of easy to manage, easy to deploy Intel or AMD hardware nodes. Choice and flexibility there because, again, feedback from customers is they want their this environment, this clean room environment, this second copy of the data to be completely isolated. I think isolated is a very good way of describing it. So it is separate from their existing core infrastructure so that it can then be used to clean the data and restore the data from. Speed is of the essence, so it has to be performant, it has to be highly performant systems. And again, kind of building resilient, building reliable. Lenovo has a pedigree of being one of the most reliable x86 hardware brands in the marketplace. In terms of downtime and in terms of hardware components and performance and reliability. We engineer very good systems that are very secure down to the hardware level. So.
Excellent. So as well as partnering with Lenovo to make sure that this is what we believe is a best-in-class solution, we've also worked with Lenovo and Avnet Integrate to make it really easy for customers to buy. So you mentioned the sizing, so you can procure a Predatar Lenovo clean room via Avnet Integrate in sizes from extra small all the way through to extra large. So they're really easy part numbers to purchase. And then so back to the other side of it, the software side, Chris. Predatar software. If you were interested in finding out more and maybe even subscribing to the platform, who should you talk to? How can you go about doing that?
So the best thing to do is probably to take a look at the website, www.predatar.com, and on there we have a list of what we call Apex partners who we've handpicked and trained to enable them to be able to offer the solution out to our customers.
Perfect. Right. Thank you very much. So looking at the time, I think we probably need to wrap up there. So we'll switch over to the video that I mentioned earlier, which is in Predatar, kind of a product demo really, which will bring some of these concepts to life. So I'll just take this opportunity before we do that to thank our guest Richard from Lenovo and my colleague Chris here at Predatar. So thank you, gents.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, and let's switch over to that video. Hi there. So in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to show you recovery assurance in action inside Predatar. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to be walking through the process manually, but it's important to understand that the real power of Predatar is in the automation. So in a real world scenario, everything you see here would be automated and running 24/7 to make sure that your data is always recoverable and free from malware and infections. So when you first log into Predatar, you'll see your dashboard. As you'd expect from a modern SaaS platform, it's easy to configure this to show you the information that matters most to you. So I like to see the widgets that give me an overview of the current threat status and also give me a view of the overall resiliency posture of my storage. So you can see that in this storage environment, Predatar is connected to IBM Flash Systems, IBM Storage Protect, Storage Protect Plus, and Cohesity. So that means that Predatar is monitoring those platforms for threat signals and can orchestrate recovery testing and malware scanning across all of them. And all of this is managed from within the Predatar UI. So Predatar also supports Veeam and IBM Defender Data Protect backups. And our new Honey Badger release has introduced support for rubric backups and pure storage snapshots too. You can also see here that Predatar is monitoring a SIEM platform for threat signals. So in this instance, it's IBM's QRadar. The big numbers here are telling us how many threat signals have been detected but have not yet been tested. So obviously that's a risk. And you can quickly drill into any of these threats to understand more about their source and severity by just clicking on them. But I'm going to dive straight into testing the threats. So I'll jump into the Clean Room Manager interface. Okay, so the tiles on the left-hand side represent those untested workloads. So in the real world, you'd want to test all of these, but for speed, I'm just going to select a few of them. So let's choose a Storage Protect Plus workload. Let's choose a Cohesity workload and also a TSM workload. And I'll move these into the clean room. So firstly, they move into the queue, and then as soon as there is capacity in the clean room, Predatar will automatically mount, recover, and power on each one to make sure they're recoverable. It will then run a deep malware scan using multiple XDR tools to make sure there's no hidden viruses or malware inside. So remember, in a real-world scenario, all of this is fully automated. There's no need to manually move these workloads into your clean room. Your Predatar clean room will be testing threats and validating your data 24/7. So here, in this environment, we're using one of the Predatar clean room appliances from Lenovo. But you can run a clean room in the cloud, or you can even run your clean room on existing hardware. So if we just wait a couple more moments, we should see the results from these recovery tests and malware scans. Okay, there we go. So we can see that one of these workloads, a virtual machine called SPP001, did in fact contain a malicious artifact, which Predatar has automatically removed. This cleaned workload can now be moved back to your storage, and Predatar can also run a search across the whole of your storage environment to see if the same infection has spread and is present elsewhere. So that's really all I've got time for in this short demo today. If you want to see more of Predatar, you can book a demo. Just head over to the website at www.predatar.com. Click on this blue book a demo button and simply choose a time slot that works for you. Right, thanks for your time. Bye-bye. Right, I hope you found that video useful and the session as a whole. Thanks again to my guests today, Richard and Chris. And thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us. Thanks very much. See you next time.